Welcome to JM Radio.
Welcome back, even.
Another week. It is a beautiful one with that. Today we are looking at the weather from beautiful Balogo, Philippines, the Bacon District. It is a hot one out there. Excessive heat, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, lows of 78, and typhoon season.
Typhoon season. Yeah. Get your galoshes on.
Yeah, if you're
You
out there
Baconites.
in Balogo, Philippines, keep an eye out. Typhoons in the early morning, remaining cloudy overnight. Tonight, partly cloudy. So got that heat, got that typhoons.
But hey, you got some shade to look forward to.
That's beautiful. How are you doing today, McCoy?
Pretty good. Gotta say, I feel a little relieved not having to worry about any typhoons.
That is nice.
Here in Texas, but other than that, it's a beautiful Sunday morning. A little nippy, but
really quite beautiful out. Actually,
it really
is.
Nice. I mean, the sun. I think this is my favorite kind of weather. Is the I don't know. I feel like this is a very fall weather. The winter time is whenever it's cold, but then kind of the sun goes away. It feels like every day is kind of overcast and gray. But fall feels very the time. And I guess granted, maybe this is I feel this way because I'm a Texan and have lived here for the majority of my life. But in my mind, fall means sun, but you can stand outside.
Yeah.
And be okay.
Yeah.
No,
it's weird our transition. It's weird having. I don't know if you've been having it, a lot of grass has been growing the last couple of weeks, and it's I think this is the time that I was supposed to be dying right now, but I'm not a weatherman, I guess, despite our report.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do kind of love the Texas falls where it is really chilly but really sunny still.
If anything, I think that me being born in Texas has informed my preference in season. I think fall is my favorite season because I like falls in Texas. I wonder, I don't know, it makes me curious if I lived anywhere else, if I'd be wow, I just love, typhoon season.
Yeah, well, no, it's funny because the other thing that's happening, I feel like today, is the leaves are finally kind of changing color. We've had a lot of leaves falling, but they're finally that nice yellow. So I don't know. It's I was only in Chicago very briefly, but there is something about that proper it's getting darker out, it's getting cooler out, the wind's coming in, lots of leaves falling, very Halloween-esque, but
it feels very kind of I don't it's because I feel like we've talked about this in the past, kind of this having, the way that I guess public education in America works. We've basically gotten used to our years being, kind of not really separated by the new year as much as separated by the summertime.
Yeah.
It's in our mind, the school year is the year. And so, I feel like we've talked about fall being kind of this feeling of weirdly a new start.
Yeah.
A lot of people want the New Year's Day to be the beginning of new resolutions and stuff like that. But and I guess maybe this is just because we're younger, we're probably closer to our school days than we are to our grave days, I guess.
Sure. So they say. Yeah, I know. I think about that. That's very interesting because I think a lot about how naturally inclined we are to hibernate. We are entering hibernation season, and I do feel like a lot of things close. I mean, you and I have both worked in the entertainment industry and the film industry. Sounds like we're porn stars. But every single year,
we don't want to lie to the listeners.
You can find us.
You can be very transparent.
But I feel like this is always the season. Fall in the film industry is always if any projects are maybe coming about, it's a truly stop working season. All the execs are no more money flowing. Everyone's I started in the spring. We don't need money coming in. We've got lots of money, but we need money. But I do kind of appreciate it compared to other industries possibly because I do feel like it's we are supposed to be slowing down right now. You know? I think there's something naturally in our bodies trying to slow down right now, and I don't know, maybe that's a weird clash with the fall school kind of stuff that we said. It is interesting that it is kind of flipped. Usually a very kind of human natural thing is okay, spring is the start, and
spring feels
winter is but school is the complete opposite.
It kind of I don't know, it makes me think I don't know, it's interesting because I also, having kind of like worked in the film industry, like especially immediately out of college, it's interesting kind of, maybe this is a reason that like we feel more like, I guess, sensitive to the feeling, the like new feelings of the fall, because like, well, I mean, I guess I can't speak for you, but a lot of the projects I worked on, it was funny to me how a lot of the schedules were sort of, reminded me a lot of like, here's a schedule that you find in a syllabus or something like that.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
Here are the days that like, it's like, here are all the shoot days. Here are like days that we have off,
Oh,
here are
okay.
like development days.
Yeah.
But then, one thing that, and I mean, I've had other jobs too. And so like, I'm used to, working in a restaurant where like you are kind of open every day except for Christmas Day or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like there is no winter break. But in whenever you're working like on a film, there kind of is a winter break. In a lot of ways. Like it feels like a mirror of school. In a sense that like you get your weekends, you get your. Well, I mean, I guess depending on the project.
Yeah, I was saying, sometimes.
I was in the office, so it was not like I was on set, but like I worked Monday through Friday, like Monday through Friday, and I had weekends off. I had like the same sort of national holidays, and granted, I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the the fact that we're unionized.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that schedules,
man.
Yeah, schedules.
We love a schedule.
Yeah, I'm loving a schedule more than ever. I mean, I don't know if we've shared our ages on the podcast yet, but I think we're both in our late 20s, and I think
20s.
I think schedules is something. I actually just saw a tweet this morning that was like, share this with your 29-year-old friends, and it's just like a monthly cleaning schedule to like keep your house in order or something like that. It's like, all right, call me out. But
how embarrassing! Can you send that to me? How embarrassing! I need to know the details of where to find that post. Yeah, I actually like. It's funny because I'm kind of a chronic procrastinator, and I was listening to this like very interesting. I think it was a TED Talk maybe, but like it was this woman who was describing kind of the two ways that people can like view time, and like it's interesting because if you think about like just time, of course, is this universal thing, like it exists independently of humanity, but I think that like that being said, there are very like human things that we have imposed on time to like give ourselves meaning. It's like thinking about a year split into a month, split into a day, split into like hours, minutes, seconds. Like it makes sense, but they're all kind of arbitrary. Like we created them, and if you think about it, it was like as industrialization happened, and as like there was more work to be done, the increments in which we were measuring time began to shrink. Like it kind of makes sense if you think about way back in like kind of hunting gathering days. Like really what mattered were like not even before we even had a way of measuring time or like even units to measure time. It was very much like it's the sun is up,
right?
It is the morning. Now it is like the heat of the day, the sun is above, and then now it's sunset, it's the evening time, and it's like that's kind of all we really had, because we knew some animals come out in the evening to hunt, some animals come out in the morning to hunt, and it was like as we had more things to do, we kind of started adding more, like we started focusing in on that units to where like now we have all of these like productivity techniques that are designed to like
fill
block
every second.
off time, and like, but it's all very like structured and rigid. And she's like, these people, like there are people that view time like that. Like time is in seconds and minutes and hours. And if I have things to do, like, say I have like these 3 tasks to complete. Well, I know that this task is going to take me 1 hour, so I'm going to do it now. And at the end of that 1 hour, I'm going to start this next task. It's going to take me 30 minutes or something, and at the end of that task, whatever. And it's like that's how they were able to kind of like conceptualize time to like place it out. I think that I'm the other person that she was describing, which is like more of a time as events.
Yeah.
Time as a like, this is like, I'm gonna do that. It's like if I knew that I had a paper to write this morning or whatever. God, we were just talking about school. I'm 29. I'm 28 years old. I haven't written a paper
we're
in
also
almost a decade.
in peak thinking about going back to school age.
I guess that's true.
I
guess I better,
can't escape those
normalize
patterns.
that in my brain now. But like if I had something like that, if I was wanting to work on a paper, and like later you wanted to go see a movie, and you were like, "Hey, McCoy, you want to go see this movie?" I feel like there is a Bizarro World version of McCoy who'd be like, yeah, the movie's at like 4:45. Like, great. Well, I'm gonna start this at like 12.
Yeah.
But like, I'm the kind of person that's like, okay, well, I'll go to the movie after I'm done with the paper.
Interesting.
And
okay.
it's like, it's a. I don't know. Her claim was not necessarily that one is better than the other.
They're just different. Yeah.
But it's like, her claim was that the way you view time does affect how you view the world, because it's like people who see time as like as needing to be measured in kind of like second, like that's how they sort of like can rationalize time, I guess, is like through our strict defined rigid units tend to see the world more chaotically, because it's like
to the people that see it or try to follow time in a more structured way.
People who try to see put time more into,
interesting.
See the world as chaotic because they see things as like, like a delay.
Interesting.
As like, oh, it's fudging up the system, and it's like all these kind of planned for thing, and it's like someone who sees things as events are like I would be like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and write this paper. So like, say I get a knock at the door, and it's the friendliest solicitor I've ever met in my life, and we're having a grand old time chatting, and it's like, I don't know. I never finished the TED Talk, so I don't really know where she goes with this. I mean, this is me now.
Well, yeah.
But like, it like, to me, I feel like someone who, is like, I'm starting to write, I'm going to start on this paper at noon, would see that as like this, like, wrench in the system, because it's like, now I'm doing this other thing instead of, and it's like, I guess to some point I should say that, but I'm not seeing that as resources being drained in order to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see that as like a wrench in the system. It's like, okay, that's just like something that's like part of me doing the like, working on this paper. It's like that also happened. But it's like during the time that I'm working on my paper. It's like once I do that.
Well, I'm curious because, okay, so that's really interesting about the kind of like the way that like somebody who sees time in a more structured way
I wonder if
has a more like kind of chaotic outlook on the world around them, or like world, I don't know, life, whatever, however they describe it, versus somebody else who maybe like does not follow it as rigidly, but is maybe more. Do you feel like you, being somebody that follows the kind of philosophy of time being not this super structured thing, not this like super structured thing that you adhere to, do you feel like you see the world in a less chaotic sense? Because for me, it's making me think of kind of this idea that like a lot of the way we have sort of structured like religion or society or all these things has been about kind of creating and establishing this order, but through that it's kind of creates this weird kind of like othering of a perhaps natural state. And like, to be specific, like it makes me think of like, okay, the way that like in the West, in the Christian Romanized West, it was like, okay, everything outside of the confines of Rome and Christianity is pagan chaos. It's like the Celts and the Germanics and all these guys screaming out in the woods to their nature gods and stuff like that. That's chaos, the chaos of the universe, and there's a fear to be had there. And so we need to establish this very ordered structure under Christ, the God King, that creates this structure in the universe to hide us from the chaotic cold dark. This is a very kind of like, I guess, philosophical, cultural expansion on that same idea, where it's like the people that are most kind of adhered to needing to have this structure in the universe are also the ones that are most sort of like scared that maybe there is no structure in the universe, and maybe the people that are a little bit more like, well, yeah, it's chaos, there's demon animal gods out there, sure, but there's also like, but they're not, I don't know, it's like it's very, this is a very, again, different kind of like extrapolation of that idea, but again, it's just that like, okay, well, but if you kind of embrace the chaos a little bit, there's kind of like a piece in the void of being like, yeah, we are, not to sound like a redditor, but like we are just like floating in the void on like a little rock kind of thing, and that's okay. Versus like, no, there must be this like structure to everything.
Yeah.
And I have a reason to be here. Maybe in a way. So
I don't know. It feels like I think to some extent, like, yeah, there's kind of like a philosophy about it, because like I it's like I don't know, like it makes me very curious to like maybe like re-listen to this TED talk.
Yeah,
because, like,
sounds interesting. Yeah,
if anything, like I kind of feel like it's not even really about whether or not you view the world chaotically or not. It's how you view the chaos in the world.
Yeah,
kind of like you're saying. Like, it's like someone who is, someone who like adheres to the structure. I feel like you said, is like they are seeing like the chaos as something to be ordered. They see it as a tangle, like a mess that is begging to be entangled. And I feel like, and maybe this is just my own personal philosophy, but like the I was able to Google the terms. The first the chronological time would be the kind of number.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. This is the AI Google, so this could be just absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
But like time is a number, and then time is like
Go to Grokpedia.
Grokpedia. Okay, so there's white time and black time. What does that mean, huh?
Oh well, so that was another thing I was going to say. Is it was reminding me of the kind of POC time. Have you heard of that term? Like the POC time, where it's basically like I think in America.
I was just making a good joke about how racist I'm sure Grokpedia is. Is this like an actual?
This is like an actual like kind of like cultural concept where it's like I've heard it like in America be referred to like specifically with like I think like black people in America. I've heard it like from like my family in terms of like my family in like Mexico, or we have family in Costa Rica, and like it's kind of like the Latin American time too kind of thing. I think actually when we were living in Mexico, I feel like
I was gonna say like maybe this is like what we experienced like down in Mexico.
I think it is, where it's like the like kind of the more white Western kind of cultural approach to time is like, yeah, okay, the gathering tonight starts at 7. Be there at 7, if not a little bit earlier, promptly, yada yada yada. Gonna adhere to all these things. Versus like in Mexico, it's like, okay, party starts at 7. Okay, we'll be there about 7:30, 8, and then we'll be there. And so like what you were saying earlier, it is kind of seeing things as more of like these events than like specific times, where it's like, and it's funny because like I think as a kind of mixed person myself, I find myself kind of in this weird in between where it's like I love like a nice structure. I love like how long are we hanging out for? Are we hanging out for 2 hours? Good. Okay, I want to be like know where I'm going at 2 hours. But then at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, you show up late. It's a hangout. You're hanging out. Kind of doing Irish goodbye. But yeah. So anyway, all that to say that the white versus black. I mean, I think it is kind of this cultural thing where, and I think it kind of goes this where
well, and I feel like I think there is like there's the historical context of that too, because I'm it's like I wonder, that was something I responded really positively to whenever we were in Mexico, like when we were living in Mexico, and like I'm full white. I'm full white. I'm it's aggressively white, dare I say. But it's like I think it's the anti kind of like, I don't know. I feel it's dangerous territory to out myself as like anti-capitalist, but like, to some extent, like I want I blame the structures of like of industrialization for that.
Yeah.
That I think like I don't know. It's something that I don't like, which is like I feel, and maybe this would be illustrated reading the Grokpedia entry, but like it seems as though even in our delineation of like POC color versus white color. It seems like
or time.
Or time. Yeah. It seems like pejorative, like it always seems like there's this naivete associated with not adhering to a structure, which I think is like just a really like it's not a smart way of thinking. It's like automatically viewing that as like you're not fitting into a structure, so you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
but it's like no.
It's different.
Like most of the stress that you guys are adding and like this whole I don't like. It responded well to me because I saw like you guys are doing it better. Here. Like this is
it's okay to be a little bit
okay. Mm-hmm. Like it's like kind of what you're saying. Like obviously I can't totally remove myself from like the structure of time because like there are things that you can't really avoid. But at the same time, it's like I think there's a balance that should be accepted. I think a little more than it seems like people want to.
Yeah. Well, I think people are like, I mean, it makes me think about like how there's a lot of discussion about the quality of life or the pace of life, somewhere like here in America versus somewhere like in Europe or something like that. Like I saw this tweet this week of this little seaside town in Italy, and there's like it's like a little village going up into the mountains, and it's in front of this beautiful blue ocean water, and people are out at the beach and on the middle of a weekday, and there's a train cutting through it, and it's like not a high-speed train, but it's like a nice passenger train, and the caption was basically just like, this country has a smaller GDP than the smallest United States state, and yet tell me that this quality of life isn't sort of like better, and so I think exactly what we're talking, and also the sort of criticism of POC time that I have experienced, not only like clashes with my own personal approach to time, but also hearing people be like, okay, kind of making fun of it in maybe.
Well, it's like hearing my parents talk about like going to like Europe, being like it's an inconvenience to them.
Yeah,
like they were we expected it to start at 8, so whenever no one showed up, and I'm like, how is it like very very American way of thinking to be like everyone else is wrong here?
Well, that's exactly what I think. Like it's those like that is a cultural like resonance going back to these savages.
Exactly.
These they don't live like us civilized folk who show up and start eating right at 8 o'clock. It's like, yeah, okay, man, whatever, man.
I don't know. It makes me think of this like very old, this ancient document I found by ancient philosopher Michael Stevens. But like I can't remember like what this some Vsauce video, but like maybe it was like this maybe it was when he did that weird YouTube TV thing.
Oh, okay.
But like it was something he was doing on like fear, and like what is fear? Like why are we afraid and stuff like that. And again, this is, I guess, we're episode 3 now is a good episode for people to start getting familiar with like who we are as people, in a sense that like I think by the end of this episode they'll get a good idea that I'm someone who will confidently talk about anything that I have almost zero knowledge of.
Good. Okay. Well,
so I mean,
you need that to start a podcast.
I think so. But certainly, if we're going to break through in the manosphere,
we're the Joe Rogan of the left.
Let's talk about more things we don't know about. But like this fear kind of, if you think about kind of statistically, I guess what the majority of people are afraid of. Like, what are some of the most common fears? Or like the darkness, death, spider, commitment, like public speaking, stuff like that. Like. He had made this claim basically, or I don't know if Michael did, but somebody did. Sorry, Michael. I don't want to throw you under the bus, Michael.
So much to him. Yeah.
I just look up to you so much, man.
He was talking about he loved Hitler.
Yeah, it was so weird. Yeah, Michael, and he showed me these weird tattoos. But like
he's skinny, he is bald, so
yeah, he is bald. I get one S could stand for Stevens, but why the other N?
It's supposed to be an M, but it's
that was the tattoo artist sneeze. Anywho, but like kind of instinctually, if you think about it, like humans, there is a like biological advantage to. I want to carefully say this because it's not that like being cautious of things that you're not familiar with.
Sure.
Like, evolutionarily,
it's just
is a good trait to have because it's like often things that you're not familiar with carry a higher risk of killing you. And so there is like it's this argument of like fear kind of being this instinctual thing that we have that is an aversion to things we don't know.
Yeah.
And like basically one of the reasons, like darkness being a very common fear is because whenever you think about darkness is a lot of times is associated with like you not being able to see anything.
Yeah.
You not being able to like know what's out, what's like directly in front of you and stuff like that. A lot of people's like fear of death comes specifically from like a fear of not knowing what happens when you die.
Yeah, sure.
Like, a lot of it's just like a lot of fear is, as specific as it might be, can sort of be traced down to a particular unfamiliarity with something.
Yeah.
And like, I think it explains a lot. I think about kind of the aversion to, POC time that like I feel like white Europeans and white Americans like had or have probably still even is like kind of this. I don't know because it like it's not. Maybe it is a fear. Like maybe it really is a fear because it's like.
Well, I think fear is like it's a big word, but it's just a very common thing. It is something that every single person has some fear of something.
Right. And it's like it's even like a wariness almost,
Yeah. And I think what you're saying too, like it is. I mean, like we can attach all of these intellectual words to things. I mean, it's kind of like time itself. We can associate very specific incremental changes in a rigid mechanical watch to the concept of time.
Yeah.
Just as fear can be associated with like very specific human things like, discrimination, all these things. But at the end of the day, fear is this very like primal thing that, as much as you try to conquer every fear in your life, it is something that exists within you,
Yeah. It's like, it's one of those things that's like I don't know. I don't want to, I don't want to like say that anyone pursuing some crusade of like being this fearless individual is like pursuing a fruitless task. But like to some extent, I think that like it should bring some people some solace that it's not a weird thing to be afraid of things.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and I mean, I obviously I have a lot to say about this, but before I've kind of talked about this idea of like hard work. How we're kind of as a society moving, as we're adopting AI and like all these, technological platforms and like products and software that like are designed to make our work more streamlined and stuff like that. The labor, I think, is also a very human instinctual thing.
Yeah.
Like we want to. There is a drive that we have to do.
To create, to be productive. Yeah.
And it's like seeing these things as like a way of streamlining that. I think is a wrong way of looking at it. It's like my claim that like
a wrong way of approaching like the
it's like
quote unquote problem or like,
it's like we're moving away from what we like doing because we think that it's going to make us like doing it more, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're moving as a species to make everything easier, but I don't think any of us have ever like sat down to think like, is it worth things being easier?
Yeah.
Like some things I think are supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
And it's like some things I think are supposed to be, it's normal to be afraid of things, And I think that
there's have to face the unexpected sometimes. It's very
it's a very human thing. And it's like, why are we running away from our humanity?
Yeah.
At what point did society like our society and our humanity like disconnect in such a way where it's like you're a baby if you're afraid of something, you know.
Sure,
like
sure.
It's like fear is something that's like it's emasculating.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's like, oh, you're not a real man if you're like afraid of something, you know. And it's like
well, I was gonna say I think that like this stuff is not like this sort of attempt to run away from or escape fear is not something that is like very new, you know. And it's like I mean I feel like that sounds obvious, but like in a way it's like everything, all of these pursuits, because I think it's again what in a very like natural, like another very primal thing within us is to find and seek comfort and seek that reprieve from this chaotic natural world that we have evolved out of. And so
it's like rest, I think.
It's
exactly the same way labor is a very like human thing. I think rest is also, and it's like it is important that both things are in our lives, you know, for us to feel fulfilled.
The balance. But I mean I think like in terms of like in that pursuit of comfort, which we have been chasing for generations, and then all of a sudden within the last 100 years we have been able to experience comforts the likes of which hundreds of thousands of our ancestors have never couldn't have even dreamed of. I mean, the ability to sit on a comfortable couch in AC and get Taco Bell DoorDashed to your house while you're watching endless, you know, YouTube streams or whatever. I mean, like, it's truly an amount of comfort that is unprecedented, but is also something that we have been constantly trying to chase down. But yeah, with the technology that we have now, I mean, it's like with AI. It's like AI is kind of also that like ultimate attempt to escape fear in the way that they're trying to approach AI like media. Like, oh, they want to plug in a ChatGPT bot directly into your head that is not only anticipating and predicting what you want to see and then showing that to you before you even know that you want it, so that way you're given this perfect piece of media that is tailored directly to making you feel comfortable, feel entertained, and in a way escape that unexpectedness. Because I mean that's what great art is. That's what great art does. Is you're watching, you know, an audience in the 1950s going to watch Psycho could never have dreamed of seeing such an intense moment as the knife coming in the shower and, you know, the killer coming out. But it's like, but maybe you need to see that. Maybe you need to like be challenged in that, and like,
and you know what? I think this is the thing is like, I don't think it's about seeing it. I think that's where that's the disconnect. I think that's what we believe is like we need to like it's important for us to like see these things. And I think like maybe this is like a recent realization I've had, but like I think that's wrong. I don't think it's not as important for people to see things as it is for people to discover things. They need to find things. It's like it's kind of what we were talking about, like our experience with the internet versus like a newer, you know, like someone from a younger person experience with the internet is like we had things, you know, like whenever we were on YouTube, there wasn't really necessarily like as powerful an algorithm as there is now, where like our front page had videos that like were tailored to our experience. And like it was more like it felt more like when you found a, you know, a channel that was not like super popular, that wouldn't be like a trending video or something like that. Like it really did feel like you discovered it. It wasn't presented to you. And like now, you know, like it's crazy thinking about, you know, the negative connotations associated with like scrolling through like Netflix to like look for a movie, because you're like, you know, where's all like they're not showing me the things like I want to watch, you know? But it's like, why? Because and I feel like I'm guilty of like, you know, that's always the worst part, especially with my fucking family, like, you know, trying to find a movie that, you know,
so the majority doing it,
you know? But like thinking about that is like being annoying, while simultaneously having these like memories of like going to Blockbuster, and physically sorting through movies to find the movie that me and my brothers wanted to watch, you know, and like that was not tedious.
Yeah.
That did not feel tedious. You know? And like Netflix feels tedious. And it's like
I'll have moments like that where like I'll be like pulling up my, you know, iPad baby YouTube lunch meal or lunch video and like being like, oh my god, like why can't I just like, you know, and it's like, and it's funny because yeah, now I've got like an algorithm that is supposedly, you know, giving me stuff, but it's all based off just like, you know, shit that I've watched for like 15 years. So it's like it's too algorithmed, but at the same time, it's almost impossible to like truly discover anything.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's
YouTube,
like I think to some extent there's like a, you know, think about how like different it is to like go to a restaurant that like all of your friends were like, have you not been there? Like you gotta go here. And like getting some food and being like, yeah, it's pretty good, you know. Versus like you're on a walk in the neighborhood and there's this like weird hole in the wall that you've never seen before, and you go in and you're like, oh my god, this like quesadilla, which granted like probably was somewhere in like the, you know, near the most average in like quesadilla you ever had, but it's like in that moment you're like, I had no idea. Yeah, no one know about this. It's not even on Google Maps. Like I discovered this, and it's like that alone enhances that experience so much that like, you know, it is crazy because it's like in that moment you're not thinking about like, is this quesadilla really the best quesadilla I've ever had?
Zillow, you know? Let me check
because like all my friends told me like,
Yelp,
you know, yeah.
What's
the, you know,
let me see
how many bathrooms does this quesadilla? What's the square footage on this quesadilla? But like I don't know, there is something about discovering things that we have, I guess, like given up on because now because it's hard. It's too hard.
Well, and so like, okay, this kind of leads me down another like rabbit hole that I was thinking about because yesterday I went to a friend's, you know, just like football watch party, and he had his little cousins there, and they were sitting on the inside where everyone was watching football outside, and they were inside, and they had on the TV inside a video of some streamer that they like or follow reacting to somebody else's gameplay video, and they were simultaneously on their phones basically just like scrolling while this thing was playing, and I was inside getting some stuff and the video autoplayed, and all it did was just go to, I think it was the same guy, just like another video of the same guy just going, and it was just pure just like background noise for them. And it was making me think a lot about that discovery and how like I think that like the internet, I have such like a love-hate relationship with it, like I'm sure every single person does, where it's like even though it has provided these great avenues to discover all this stuff, to discover the world, all this kind of stuff, it has perfectly perfected that IV drip directly into your bloodstream of just glaze over and just absorb this stuff, and there's no discovery to it, there's no challenge to it, it's just endless react videos of Roblox content in the exact same ways that like these kids have seen it their entire lives. I mean, it's like it makes me sound so boomer, but it's like, yeah, like at least like when watching like cartoon shows on like Cartoon Network in the 2000s, yeah, there was like artistry behind it that was attempting to challenge your senses in terms of storytelling, in terms of, you know, how things unfolded and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess a little bit losing track of my point here a little bit, but basically just that discovery is completely being like pulled out of how kids are interacting with all things. Yeah. With all things, you know.
It's like I think the more focus that there is on like kind of discovery, I mean, it's sort of like it kind of follows that whenever it's like, you know, whenever you're channel surfing, you know, and, you know, you're quote unquote trying to discover like whatever show you're going to watch, you know, there is a good production company, I guess, or like a good, you know, like they want their product to pull you in, you know, they want to be discovered, you know, and like I think that whenever you kind of switch the mechanism, you know, to not really be about discovery anymore, but to be about like presentation, you know, all of a sudden the focus on quality like kind of doesn't matter because of course, like, why would it matter? You like someone like Netflix, right? As soon as they transition into producing their own content, why on earth would they not be incentivized to push that content on you as opposed to, actually working to make it be more quality than some of the other things on the platform so that, like, given the option, like, I don't know,
it fits the mold and it's going to be at the top of your algorithm, so you'll click on it.
It's the myth of option. They're giving you, it's, they're giving you something that you think is a choice. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe I think we're coming to an age now where more and more people, I think, are realizing that.
Yeah, well, and I think that was maybe my other thing that I was thinking with the kids specifically is, like, I think that there's got to be, like, a breaking point where it's like, no matter how challenging and I think sort of explosive as I think this reckoning will be, I mean, kids will just get bored of it, and I think it could be kind of really, like, dangerous and scary because, like, I mean, I've seen so many things about, like, how just fucking terribly kids are doing in education right now. Like, I saw some crazy thing about how like there was some sort of study done about how these kids don't even have, like, sort of like basic object permanence. I saw that this professor in college talked about how he was going back with his students about, like, their exam cheat sheet or something like that, and they were being asked about, like, letters or something like that, and, like, the kids legitimately didn't even know how many letters are in the alphabet, let alone, like, what they all were. Like, they convinced the professor to include the alphabet on the cheat sheet so they had all the letters, like, out there in a row and were able to reference it. And so it's just, again, it's like in this sort of, like, dumbing down of and, like, extreme comfort contentification of this newer generation, it's like the kid will burn down the village to feel the warmth of it, or kind of thing. Like, it's like we're so kind of, like, numbing them that I think it's gonna be a real reckoning. I think it's gonna be a real
I think
reckoning.
so too, and I think it's like, I don't know, I think one point, like, I think one thing that's going to, I don't know, like, determine when the breaking point happens is the realization that, like, the problem was with the product that we were feeding the children. Not how the children were interacting with it. It's like, we built them this way, and now we're complaining that we built them this way. How could you do this to me now that I've done this to you? How could you let me doing this to you cause you to do this to me? That kind of feels like that kind of feels like whenever I hear kind of complaints about, like, children, especially, like, I think especially, and maybe really only from, exclusively from, like, people who are content creators now, kind of complaining about the state of, content creation. It's like, right, but, like, you're frustrated that it's not working. Like, what you're frustrated is, it sounds like to me, what it feels like to me is that you're frustrated that you're not able to take advantage of these kids anymore because like, you've essentially desensitized them. It's like, it's like hearing a soda company that puts so much sugar in their soda that now, like, every child is, like, so accustomed to sugar that even that soda doesn't taste sweet to them anymore. And then having the soda companies being like, yeah, I don't know what it is with, like, kids these days. Like, they're just so hopped up on sugar. Like, no one's even drinking, like, the soda anymore. It's like, well, no shit, they're not. Like, do you understand that you're a part of the problem? I don't know. And it's like, to some extent, like, we're all part of the problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we only live in the. No.
It's okay to recognize that and be like, okay, let's try and fix this problem. As opposed to the finger pointing game of, like, it's the idea of, like, somebody has to call the ambulance. You can't. Everyone can't just be like, somebody's going to call an ambulance. Because then no one calls an ambulance. You know what I mean? Like, if we all think, like, it's someone else's fault and it's up to them to fix it before we do anything.
Well, we all got to fix it.
No one's going to fix it. So.
Well, I think that's a really good stopping point. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be right back after this.
Something to think on, yeah. Chew on that. All right. right, welcome back here to Discourse Correction
on JM Radio.
JM Radio.
Nice long discussion on that first one. That was nice. That was nice. But I think we are ready to jump straight into our topic of the week that we discussed at the end of last week. As a reminder, at the end of each one of our episodes, we are going to try and sort of foster some discussion and communication with the audience.
Dare we say something to discover?
So, as a reminder, we have a email that you can reach out to with your own personal responses to our topics, our questions, or whatnot. It's also open up as a general thing. Leave us a voicemail, leave us a message, send us a link, tell us something that you enjoyed about this episode, something that interested you this week.
Tell us anything.
Yeah, literally anything. Again, I will click on any link you send me. And again, it is jmradiovoicemail@gmail.com. We'll repeat this at the end of the episode again after we finish our discussions. But again, jmradiovoicemail@gmail.com. McCoy, you want to take it away from our discussion from last week?
Absolutely. I feel like, there's always a bunch of stuff I can talk about just because I'll never shut up. But I kind of wanted to, keep it to something more recent I discovered, which is kind of funny because I think talking about, discovery kind of being a main topic, I feel it's kind of interesting that, this topic, it's more almost about rediscovery, because you were saying, I had mentioned that one of the things on my top 10 lists, I would imagine, is Wikipedia.com. And so I kind of have started saving kind of what I believe to be some of my favorite Wikipedia pages.
Oh, okay.
Not I like
that, yeah.
If they're particularly interesting or someone thought to make a, one of my favorite facts about, I don't even know if this is still true, but did you know that at one point the most translated page on Wikipedia was the...
Wait, let me guess. It was it a specific thing, or was it like an event?
It was a person.
It was a person. Interesting. Is it Hitler?
It was not Hitler.
Is it Jesus?
Jesus was second place.
Is it Michael Jackson?
It was Corbin Bleu.
Corbin Bleu?
From High School Musical.
From High School Musical is the most translated.
Has the most translations.
What the hell?
At least at the time I read that fact, the most translations, more than Jesus Christ.
That is fascinating. He's had an eventful life. I've heard he's had some issues. He's in and out of the limelight. That's interesting. Sure. Corbin Bleu.
Corbin Bleu. A man I have not thought about since prepubescence. But
that's fascinating. Wow. Okay.
Interesting. Okay. It looks. I have now found the Wikipedia article about Wikipedia articles with the most different. I guess the way they have it is like Wikipedia. Technically, it's not translations because they're different websites depending on whatever country.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Interesting.
New information. Breaking news: Corbin Bleu has been dropped.
Breaking news. Listen, you guys are going to want to drop everything. I've got some. This is hot off the presses. This is the longest list of things. What on earth? Okay. So.
For the viewer, McCoy is scrolling his entire screen.
My God.
Down to...
Okay. High language representation. Okay, examples of Wikipedia articles with high language representation. So this is interesting because these are all... It separates them by category. And Man, this kind of seems like it'd be a fun game. Wow. Okay. If I were to ask you, the category is place.
Okay.
What do you think has? Category place, subcategory country. Which country do you think has the most Wikipedia articles?
Is it the United States?
Second place.
Second place, U.S. First, Russia?
No. I would say it's similar to the Corbin Bleu, where it's an odd one.
Mm.
You'd be surprised.
Italy?
No. But now I actually can understand why it might not be surprising.
Okay.
Because it's let's say like someone Googling this country might get results for something else also.
What the fuck? I'm at a loss. Give me a hemisphere at least. Western, Eastern?
Eastern.
Ukraine?
I would say you're close. Hot. You're getting hotter.
Okay. Eastern European.
I would say even a little more Eastern than Eastern European.
Turkey?
Turkey.
Okay.
Turkey has 300 is written in. There are 332 different languages.
That makes sense. They got a history to them. They got a history to them. Interesting.
Anyway, I'm stalling, but all of this to say, I found this Wikipedia article that was so interesting because it was like a topic that I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
Or that I was not. There's no there's really very little application for this, which I think makes it one of my favorites. But the title of this Wikipedia article is Lazarus Taxon. So,
familiar with Lazarus, I'm not familiar with taxon.
So what taxon is, your plural taxa, is, let me get like a good definition going. But like, taxonomy in biology is like, we are Homo sapiens. That is our species. Okay. Part of the Homo genus.
Homogeneous, yeah, I think so, right?
I think, and then like up to like the taxon is a group of one or more populations of an organism or organisms seen by taxonomists to form like a unit.
Okay,
so it's like African. So it's like, I guess a taxon is any of those sort of like a genus is a taxon, a species is a taxon.
Okay.
It's because it's, although neither
is a general sort of group. Okay.
Taxons usually known by a particular name and given a particular ranking. So it's like genus and life, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I didn't have that memorized. I found a picture. But so a Lazarus taxon, Lazarus coming from the biblical story of Lazarus. A Lazarus taxon is essentially a taxon that disappears from one or more periods from the fossil record, only to appear again either in later fossil records or as an actual living organism.
Interesting.
And so, like, I guess, like, to describe it more practically, it's basically animals we thought were extinct that we then found more of. And we're like, that. Oh, actually, they're not extinct.
Interesting. Okay.
I feel like there's, like, a good... I mean, and this list like goes on by like there are apparently like so many.
I mean, because I feel like I've heard so many stories of. I mean, there's the Barbary lions. There's the just like the species that have just disappeared. But there's also the species that like just I think earlier this week on Twitter there was this like wild cat that apparently has not been seen in like generations or something like that. That like reappeared and like came really close to a photographer and someone was able to get like a really good video of it. And I don't know. And then it too just makes me think of how much of this world we are still it is still so wild, as much as we have developed things. I mean, it's like there's still so many pockets out there of space and nature that what is out there? Even,
because I feel like a good like a famous example that I think I'm going to say most people know, and I'm going to say a word and people are going to be like, well, what the hell are you talking about? But, anyone who's played Animal Crossing, I guess, is familiar with, like, the coelacanth, that, like, kind of fish that looks,
super flat? Or
it's like, it's got all the kind of, like, dots on it. This is what it looks like. I'm showing Jacob a picture.
But, boot up your Animal Crossing. You've seen it,
it's like, it's very rare fish, it sells for a lot, but, like, it's very famously like thought to have gone extinct 66 million years ago and was rediscovered in like the 1930s. Some fishermen caught it and they were like, what on earth? And like, it's crazy like that how it points to like kind of the imperfection, I think, of like our own kind of like our way of putting animals into like taxa.
Sure. Yeah.
It's, whenever it's kind of what I was talking about, like the humans being limited by like our computation, we're computationally bound observers, like we've defined animals this way, so we only see animals this way. And I think like in a lot of ways that could lead to, potential kind of, like misclassification even, or just like not being able, like not realizing that this thing that you thought was extinct is actually this thing.
Yeah. Or just the whole nature of it is just completely different. I mean, it's like what we were talking about. We were having a conversation yesterday about just the whole concept of survival of the fittest and how it, is seen in many ways still as law of nature kind of thing, but was strictly something that we and people like Darwin prescribed to a natural process that he even himself later was like, oh, okay, no, that's not the nature of nature at all, so okay, that's really interesting because there's also, okay, maybe this is a good transition into my topic, because I think these can kind of fuse together a little bit. Is my topic that the thing that stood out to me the most this week is I watched this video from Etymology Nerd, a guy that we are both familiar with. Shout out Etymology Nerd if anybody is looking
I'm obsessed with you.
Yeah, an absolute beautiful dork of linguistics.
What a king.
I need to read his book. Actually, I need to speak with you about that. But anyway, he had a video where he talked about words and their sort of like associations. He was specifically using the example of gay, and how gay had all these sort of connotations around it in like the 40s and 50s about being like happy and dapper and like all these kind of very specific kind of positive but also kind of very descriptive kind of ways of describing people in the way that they are and exist in the world, and how over the course of time how it has shifted to being more related to homosexuality, gay, lesbian, all these kind of very specific sexuality kind of things, and has kind of like left those connotations behind. So he was using it as this like kind of example to talk about one, sort of the structure of LLMs and these things that we call AI, because he was using it as like the way that they have really made these sort of maps recently is through the data sets of AI, because that's how we train them. That's how we they interpret our written word and all these things that we feed them. And so that was led me down this other rabbit hole where I was reading about this guy named Lacan. He was a French psychotherapist, psychologist, psychoanalyst, psychiatrist, who followed in the footsteps of Freud. He was in that time, so very kind of 1900s French philosopher, French psychiatrist. He was a heavy influence on this other guy who I think we maybe have discussed, Slavoj Žižek, who is like kind of like, he's another very funny philosopher guy who I'm sure many people are somewhat familiar with that would stumble upon our podcast. And he talks about Lacan a lot. And so anyway, one of the concepts that I was kind of going down a rabbit hole with Lacan was just sort of this whole idea of identity and the way that we perceive the world, not through the way that things are, but the way that they are not, the things that they are not. So in terms of this etymology gay thing, it was like, okay, well, gay used to be very specifically, look at the words that floated around in the word chart: happy, dapper, all these kind of like very sort of like positive things, but those were not descriptors of the word itself. And if anything, it never specifically meant anything. All it meant was these kind of subset of things, but nothing else outside of that kind of sphere. And so now, like, even more so, gay is like has even like kind of gotten into a much stricter sense of like, it is this very specific thing, and so you are able to look at it as not everything else. And so Lacan talks about this kind of like negative interpretation of identity, where it is a like sort of, from my understanding of it, I'm very much like kind of like just reading about it for the first time, is that the way that we learn about ourselves, our identity, who we are, how we operate in the world, is more often about what we are not than what we truly maybe are. And so he uses the example of, okay, when you are a child and you see yourself in the mirror for the first time, you are able to slowly start to identify yourself as that being, that physical form there, separate from everything else that you are interpreting in the world. How when you are taught you are a man, it's more often through the lens of what is not a man. There are...
You're a man doesn't do that.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't...
Some of man...
The classic, boys don't cry, reject femininity, be masculine, and these very specific things. But again, how more often than not, it is through what you are not and versus what you are. And so, anyway, that was just like something that was like really kind of sticking out in my head about like the way, and to what you're talking about with this Lazarus taxonomy and just like sort of the taxonomy or animals or the whole animal kingdom in general. I mean, it's everything is this determination of we are man, we are human, we are separate. Everything else is an other, something separate from ourselves, and we must only look at it through that lens. And I think maybe this goes back to our conversation a little bit earlier, as well as just general conversation about like that is sort of, I think, a very Western Christianized kind of thing. I mean, not to do the noble savage kind of thing, but like I think there's like a legitimacy to the claim that like, well, the way that indigenous societies saw themselves as a part of everything, as truly kind of like a part of this kind of greater whole, rather than a separate thing. And to go back to our conversation from the beginning of this podcast about like time and our sort of like separation from it, and the chaos versus being kind of like fearful of the chaos or not fearful of the chaos kind of thing. It kind of does really come down to that of realizing that we are a part of this whole. And to bring it back to the conversation about the kids and the way that they are experiencing this hyper-synthetic, hyper not challenging world that they are completely separate from, I think that's going to be where the real clashes are. When it's like, because like for me personally, it's like, okay, growing up online, growing up in this kind of very already hyper technologized world, I feel a sort of separation that I'm now clashing with in my like life of being like, okay, well, like technology kind of creates this separation, but then you're forced to realize that you are part of the whole, that you are part of time, you are part of decay, you are part of a moment that is here and it will eventually fall away. That I think technology, as well as just the general way we try to approach thinking about ourselves, tries to avoid that. And it goes back to like the fear thing. It's like, well, I think it's all these kind of pursuits of, well, if we create better technology, better records, we can kind of persist in this. For like, I think the Altmans and the Palantirs and the Peter Thiels, I mean, that's all their pursuits. It's like, oh, how do we create something that allows us to fully separate from our natural selves, but and as much as we do unfortunately perceive ourselves and are taught through this kind of what you are not kind of thing, at the end of the day you are just part of it. You are part of it.
It kind of feels like, I don't know, like it's like thinking about the like connection and the like kind of almost defining yourself as not that. Like, I'm not that. It almost feels like, I don't, like, it makes me think, like, I think I've had this like realization that one of the problems, well, I mean, I don't know. I think I think there's this idea that there is, I don't even know how I'm going to try to say it. But like, it's like what you were saying about, how like, the kind of Westerners, like white Westerners, like definitely kind of viewing this more psychological view of time as like savage and like this noble it's like I feel like all of this it's not necessarily it's strictly this inability to like perceive this other person's like way of living, but it's more so, or maybe it was that at one point, but now it feels like it's this inability to imagine a world in which both lifestyles can coexist. It's like the problem is like it's not just that they're different, it's that we're seeing their difference as an affront to us, as not only like something unfamiliar, but something that's a threat.
Yes.
Because it's unfamiliar. And I think like that's the dangerous way of thinking, is not that like not that we should be like I think that if you are amongst a culture that is not your own, and you experience something that you're not familiar with and that makes you like uncomfortable, even I don't think that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. Like, what is a bad thing is to make that uncomfortability that you feel like lead you to the conclusion that it would be better if they were all like me, and it's like this if they adopted the right way of living. But the problem is not that they haven't. The problem is that you believe that there is a right way of living.
Yes.
It's like that we're all arguing to answer a question that doesn't make any sense. That's like it's answering a question that's based on a premise that doesn't have an answer. What is the right way of living? That's not the question that we should be asking.
Well, because I think one of the biggest sort of like revelations I've had in my life is just learning very simply, and I think it was a Wikipedia search, probably, God bless, that just like pagan, the word pagan was literally just non-Christian, non-Roman. So the Germanic Norse worshipping tribes in the north were pagan. The Celts dancing in the Spanish Highlands were pagan. The Africans and their various different religions were pagan. Like it was never a specific thing. It was simply just that other, that not us, that not this. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, to the argument is always, but it's human nature. That's human nature is how we. It's like, okay, yeah. So it does make sense that a tribe surviving in 12 BC or something like that has a real visceral violent fear of this other, because we're living in this fractured world, in this tribal world, in this limited world where you can only see and experience things in those very kind of simplistic ways. And then it's just so funny and sad to see those same things carry over into this quote unquote modern era. I mean, it's like, I think like the conversation is like heavy right now with Trump and his immigration policies and all this stuff, and how there's so much return to this millennia old argument of, but the foreigner, but they're going to come in and change our ways. And it's like, motherfucker, we live in America. Like, we are living right now in Austin, Texas, and we know people who grew up in Michigan, people who grew up in Florida, people who grew up in like rural Appalachia, people that grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Those people, even if they were all the whitest motherfuckers in the world, had such drastically different cultural upbringings and stuff like that. And we immediately are like, okay, but the Black Haitians or the brown Guatemalans, like those cultures are just, or the Muslims, they're just completely incompatible with our way of life. And it's like, you're scrolling on your iPad and watching Netflix all day. You're already living a life that's completely incompatible with your perfect homogenous ancestors, or whatever. I mean, so it's just like
it's like we have American friends that we live further away from than like someone in India lives from, like, I don't know, someone in like the Ukraine, you know, like I mean, I don't know. That's
well, yeah, that's right.
I need a globe or something, but like, you know, or at least, you know, like France and Germany, two countries that speak different languages, that have different, you know, cultural histories, like amongst their peoples, that have different like language families, you know, like that are geographically close. There are neighboring countries that are, you know, closer than I live to my brother. You know?
Yeah, and
which is, I don't know. It's why it's like, it makes me think, you know, I don't know. Yeah. The other, like, it just, it's not that, it made me think that back in the, you know, what you were saying, like, you know, in 10,000 years ago or whatever, where like there was sort of this, probably more visceral fear that like you had of the other.
Yeah.
It was like, that we are experiencing now. I think that's what frustrates me specifically, is like back then there was a fear of the unknown that felt valid because there was an unknown.
Yeah, 100%.
It was unknown.
It was a time of myth. Yeah.
And what's frustrating now is like we don't live in a world with that many unknowns like that anymore. Yeah. What we live in is a people who refuse. It's like back then it makes sense because we didn't have the knowledge. Now it doesn't make sense because we have the knowledge that we're choosing not to learn from.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
Like it's like, you know, say probably 200, you know, I mean like 1780 or whatever. I'm sure Americans probably like did think, you know, like I had no idea what to think about, like, you know, any other Spaniard. I can't remember if like Mexico was a country yet at that point, but like,
yeah, it depends on,
but you know, like there was so little knowledge they had about each other and each other's cultures that like maybe it was a little harder to, you know, kind of wrap your head around these cultural differences. Sure. But it's like, my God, we have the internet, we have like textbooks, I you know, we took in part of our education in public school, our freshman year, we took we took world geography. Yeah. Like we learn about the world, we learn about these cultures, and like we learn that they are different, and it's like, it's a choice to then be like, that's wrong, you know, or like that's, you know, it's like it only takes a little bit more like curiosity to stop that, you know, to be like, you know what, instead of just blanket kind of, you know, stamping down other, you know, for illegal, you know, like terrorist or whatever, which doesn't make any sense because Donald Trump thinks most of the terrorists live in America. But like, all of this is like, it just seems lazy.
Yeah.
Like it's lazy thinking is what it is.
It's primitive thinking. It's like,
it's primitive, and it's being like advertised as like the more correct.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I guess it like does point to kind of like, you know, the administration like setting their sights on like higher education and stuff like that, and really any, you know, like all education
and to technology.
Our Secretary of Education, I don't think believes in education. You know?
Literally a fucking wrestler, WWE. I can't even just like think about that right now. But
WWE, those are letters, right?
One of the
those
26,
are one of the
27, 26. I don't know. But I like the Lazarus taxonomy kind of thing. It's so funny too, again, to see people cling on to something like whiteness, or, you know, and even as somebody who's mixed, you know, like I've got family members who I'm like, the amount of sort of like, yeah, it's like, of course, be proud of your like sort of cultural background and your history and your practices and whatnot, but like any sort of like attempt in my mind to hold on to, especially like racial superiority. I mean, it talk about primitive thinking. Like, what are you fucking talking about, bro? And then again, like to like, you know, like the Rome. I mean, Rome is such this funny big thing in that clouds our minds. I mean, it's the, you know, Marx quote or the Kamala quote, the coconut, you know, you fell out of the coconut tree kind of thing. It's like the way we think about, have mythologized these things, like, how much of American whiteness is inspired by WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And so there's like, oh, if you're not, the only true Americans are WASPs, and that immediately gets into the funny conversation where it's like, okay, well, what is white? For whites weren't Irish or German or whatever for a while, and they've now been adopted into the fold of whiteness, but there's probably still a lot of whites who are like, nah, okay, but we're talking about the whites. But even then, Anglo-Saxon, like, I think Etymology Nerd or something like that, I saw some talk about this too. Anglo-Saxon, that's literally two different groups of people that have merged together. That's like that literally within the name. You've got the Anglos and the Saxons, who they weren't always, buddy. They weren't always, but if you'd gone back far, you go back far enough and told somebody that, like, hey, you're an Anglo, you're a Saxon, you guys are the same. Oh, they would have fucking skinned you alive or something like that. So it's
crazy about like, because I think it has to do with like rewriting history too. And it's
it is rewriting, as much as there's certain reactionary sides are like, wow, they're trying to destroy our history. It's like you don't see history.
It's crazy. This is just a fun little fact that maybe I can put on a button, because you said WASP. Because I was looking up earlier, it made me think of like, speaking of like rewriting history and like this, I guess prescribing things as like the correct way to do something, and not really. Did you know WASP? The word for the bug wasp. Even though white people really are just bugs. Said the white man. But like, it used to be pronounced WAPS.
Interesting.
In the same way that
like, isn't that WAP is like the Italian?
The what?
Isn't maybe I'm thinking of, or I'm dreaming Sopranos things, but isn't a WAP like a?
Maybe
I'm saying a word that was going to get our podcast canceled.
Dude, hard W
for like a Italian thing, but keep going.
Like basically like
okay, sorry. It's according to the AI on Google, most commonly a derogatory slur for Italians or people of Italian descent. I think it's more used in the past, but that's okay. So
it's like WASPs being like I think an old English word for like WASP, kind of like people who, how it's always like kind of, it's often looked down on to say like, for someone to say like, I'm going to ask you a question, and it's like, there's this idea that like, someone who doesn't even know how to pronounce the word ask, like this like illiteracy or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because like, it's WAPs and and ax versus ask and stuff. Like ax was a valid pronunciation, and if anything was a more common pronunciation of the word hundreds of years ago. And like through metathesis is what the process is called, in which like letters are kind of swapped around in a word to essentially make it easier to say. That's how WAPs became WASP. That's how ax became ask over the years. And that's, interestingly, that's why our like kind of question words, who, why, what, are spelled WH, is because they used to be spelled HW, because they used to be pronounced HW.
Yeah.
And like I was watching like this guy had made this point, like, you can actually kind of see how true that is if you like imagine like the most pretentious, like old British, like, kind of pronunciation. Like, what are you talking about? Why would you say something?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's only through, the metathesis of like why being harder to say than just why, that HW became WH, and then just the H stopped being pronounced, and now everyone's like, well, why the hell do we have an H and Y? And like it's all of this, like this rewriting history, all of these natural developments that happened that all come from like, just different people saying different things. And now we've sort of taken that as like, the fact that the axe, despite being the more common, sort of like fell out of use as it became easier for a lot of people to say ask, like there's like now we take that to mean like, okay, well now axe is wrong.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, no, it's not.
What does that mean?
Like,
Yeah,
it just means like we just more of us say it ask now. You know, like someone was. It was like, I think it was one of those like Wired like guys was talking about a bunch of stuff, but he was saying like, you know, he like they were talking about synonyms, like why are there so many synonyms? And he's like, synonyms is like another example, I think, of like language development, kind of like changing now how we think of like language, because it's like if you think about it, there really are not that many true synonyms in English. There are words that are like synonyms that we think of as synonymous, but like we only think of them now because we don't really see the differences in those words, you know. Like for example, like we think of yes as like the affirmative, you know, and like, you know, there are tons of ways to say yes, you know, like yep or yeah, or like
sure.
A common one like yay, you know, kind of being an older one that people know of, and like yay and yes both are like, you know, positive, but technically speaking, he was saying that like whenever both of those words were like around, they meant different things, because yay was basically saying like yes in the context, in a positive context.
Interesting.
And yes was like affirmative, but in a negative context. And he even is like, you can see this as like late in the language as Shakespeare, and you know, and like Shakespeare, because he pulls these two lines where like in these like Shakespeare plays, you see like someone say like yay, you know, and then something then is like positive, and then there was like this like yes, he is dead, you know, or some kind of like, it was almost like this like alas,
more kind of like scientifically affirmative. Yeah,
it was like unfortunately like that is correct, you know, versus like indeed that is correct.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, then it's interesting that yay is now like, when I think of the word yay, it's strictly in like a yay, like a wee kind of thing, like just like a strictly kind of
that, or like a very formal kind of like, you know, yay or nay, you know, or
you're like in like a That's interesting. Well, I think this, again, the kind of like the way that language, and I think it maybe speaks to the little anarchist I've always had in my heart, where it's like, I mean, I had the classic arguments with my parents or my mom specifically about like, you know, she'd be like, well, that word cannot be used in that way, or used, and I'm like, well, I was always a very hyper like, well, you know, language evolves over time, you know. I mean, it's like you can look at just like the way that like memes have evolved online. It's like the way that words and language are simply just forms of the current, you know, collective subconscious, you know. It's like the way that we kind of like collectively have decided to allow things to be that way, but how language has been used as this way to maintain hierarchies, you know, and like, you know, again, that okay,
there is a correct
immediately
way to say
you are
it.
saying it this way, you are not of my class, you are not of my background or my stature or whatnot.
That's why we have different words for meat.
For meat?
For meat.
A meat.
It's like
I think I've heard that.
Animal is a cow and the meat is beef.
Yeah,
is because
it was like
cow
French, right?
is like an old English word, and beef comes from an old French word. And whenever the Normans invaded, it was like royalty, the upper class spoke French, and the lower class, the people who ate meat, spoke French, and the people who raised the meat spoke English. So we use the English word for the animal. We use pig, we use cow, we use like sheep. We don't use mutton. We don't use like poultry or beef.
I know it's funny because how that's kind of like swapped a little bit now. Like, you know, those other words are. That's interesting. Well, I think we're kind of coming to a good ending here. So. I think, you know, would you like to follow this up with our question for next week?
So I think, you know, we're definitely, I feel like a lot of this episode has been about, you know, kind of pointing to this idea of like an idyllic society, you know, idyllic society that everyone is like kind of chasing, and You know, I feel like there are different opinions people have on like what an idyllic society looks like, but I'm interested sort of in this idea based on a very human nature. I think something else that I think is a very human thing, which is this almost need for conflict, this inability to fully be at rest, to not do anything. And so like it makes me think, you know, in a future where in this idyllic future, you know, assuming we get there, you know, where all of the problems that we have today have been solved, you know.
We're living in the Star Trek, replicators exist. Yeah,
replicators exist. There is, you know, there's a global unity, you know, no war, no famine, you know, we've solved.
No need for money, you know,
or world peace. Exactly.
Yeah.
It, you know, it makes you think, well, obviously there cannot be nothing that humans are doing, you know. And so, like, I guess the best way to phrase it is, you know, imagine we live in this idyllic society. My question to you is, assuming all of the problems of today are solved, what do you think we're looking forward to, like, as our problems of tomorrow? What are the problems of tomorrow? You know? So, you know, something to think about for the week.
Yeah. That's, again, our question both to each other, which we will discuss next week, as well as to you, the viewer. Again, reach out to us at jmradiovoicemail@gmail.com.
And one more time, just so I get to say it once, JMRadio intern. And that's the other one. Okay, is this why I don't get JMRadiovoicemail@gmail.com. That's JMRadiovoicemail@gmail.com.
Again, leave us your voicemails. Leave us a strongly worded letter. Leave us something, a weird video that you found online. Or, ideally, respond to this question. We're very interested to hear what everybody thinks. So, yeah.
I wonder if we should be, like, as, you know, just send us anything, you know? I feel like I'm going to get some knocks on the door from the FBI.
Yeah, we're going to get some. But again, you know, I want to see it. I want to see what everybody...
I want to see...
the weird shit that has influenced your
I want to see which one
brains.
of you computer nerds out there can find out how to still find a way to put anthrax in an email. You know?
Well, beautiful. Thank you all so much. Make sure to like and subscribe. And
smash that like button. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, y'all.